My name is Ava, and on my 30th birthday, my family sent their regrets. Not with a call or an apology, but with a text to our group chat demanding $5,000 for my brother's latest deal. I was sitting alone at a table I'd set for 6, staring at a single melting candle on my own cupcake. In that moment, I realized I wasn't their daughter or their sister. I was their emergency fund, their human ATM. They thought I would just send the money. What they didn't know was I was about to close their account, permanently. Before I share my story with you, let me know where you are watching from in the comments. Press the like and subscribe button if you have ever gone above and beyond for family. Believe me, you're going to want to hear what happens next. I stood in the private room of the Lakeside Lodge, my hands trembling as I adjusted a vintage lace table runner for the 3rd time. The air smelled of cedar and candle wax, and the soft glow of string lights cast warm shadows across the rustic wooden walls. It was my 30th birthday, and I'd poured every ounce of myself into making this night perfect. The table was set for 6. Me, Mom, Robert, Chloe, Leo, and an empty chair for Hope. Crystal wine glasses sparkled, and a single red velvet cupcake sat at the head, its lone candle unlit, waiting. I'd always been the odd one out, the black sheep who never quite fit into the Sterling family puzzle. Growing up, my birthdays were afterthoughts tacked onto Chloe's piano recitals or Robert's golf weekends. "You're so independent, Ava," Mom would say, her smile tight as if my solitude was a choice I'd made at 6 years old. But this time, I'd done everything right. I'd sent handwritten invitations, each one tailored with memories I thought would pull them here. Mom's love for lake views, Chloe's obsession with artisanal wine, Leo's quiet gratitude for the tuition checks I'd sent. I'd rented this lodge an hour outside Seattle because it felt like the kind of place families came to heal. The clock ticked past 7 p.m. The silence was deafening, broken only by the crackle of the fireplace. I smoothed my navy dress, the one I'd bought, because Chloe once said it made me look less intense. My phone sat face up on the table, screen dark. I tried to focus on the hope, fragile as a soap bubble, that they'd walk through that door. They had to. I was successful now, a data analyst with a corner office and a 401k. I'd paid for Chloe's wedding venue, bailed Leo out of debt, even sent Robert money for his investment opportunities. They owed me this. Memories crept in, uninvited. Mom's voice, breezy and distracted. "Ava, you've always been so strong, you don't need the fuss." Robert's laugh, too loud as he called me his little ATM at Thanksgiving, winking like it was our private joke. Chloe, radiant in her bridal gown, barely thanking me for the $10,000 check I'd written to make her day perfect. And Leo, my baby brother, texting me late at night, "Can you spot me $500 for books? Promise I'll pay you back." I always sent the money because that's what big sisters do. I lit the candle on the cupcake, the flame flickering like my resolve. The lodge's windows reflected my silhouette, alone at the head of the table. I stared at the door, willing it to open, my chest tight with a hope I knew was foolish but couldn't let go. The cupcake's frosting glistened untouched. I whispered to myself, "They're just running late." But the dread was already curling in my gut, cold and familiar. An hour later, the fireplace had burned low and the room felt smaller, the walls closing in. My phone hadn't buzzed once. I sat rigid, staring at the cupcake, its candle long since melted into a waxy pool. The hope I'd clung to was fraying, thread by thread, but I couldn't bring myself to leave. Not yet. Then a vibration. My heart lurched as I grabbed the phone, fingers fumbling. The family group chat lit up the screen, and for a split second I thought it was them, finally remembering. But the message was from Mom. "Family need to rally. Robert's property deal in Oregon needs an urgent capital injection to close. A once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Need $5,000 wired by morning. Ava, we're counting on you, honey, let me know when it's sent." Chloe's reply popped up instantly, a single heart emoji. I read it again, then a 3rd time, the words slicing through me like a scalpel. No happy birthday. No apology for missing the night I'd spent months planning. Just a demand for money, cold and transactional, as if I were a bank teller, not a daughter, not a sister. The screen blurred as my eyes burned, but I didn't cry. I couldn't. The hurt was too deep, a cavern opening inside me where hope used to live. I stood, my movements mechanical, and paid the lodge's bill, adding a generous tip for the staff who'd looked at me with pity all evening. The drive home was a blur of dark, misty roads, the Pacific Northwest swallowing my headlights. I didn't turn on the radio. The silence was my punishment, a reminder of how stupid I'd been to believe this time would be different. At home, I sat on my couch in the dark, still in my dress, the invitation cards scattered on the coffee table like evidence of my failure. I saw it clearly now. I wasn't family to them. I was a resource, a means to an end. The realization didn't break me, it froze me. I felt nothing, just a cold, clear void where my love for them used to be. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't need to. The truth was wide awake, and so was I. The next morning, a knock at my door jolted me from the haze. A courier stood there, holding a small antique-style box with a shipping label that made my breath catch. It was from Nana Sterling, my grandmother, who died 5 years ago. The label said it was scheduled for delivery on my 30th birthday, yesterday. I signed for it, my hands shaking, and carried it inside like it was made of glass. Nana had been my safe harbor, the one person who saw me, not as difficult or independent, but as hers. Her death had left a hole nothing could fill. I opened the box, and there it was, a heavy silver locket, engraved with a single sterling rose. It was beautiful, but it wasn't just a keepsake. My analyst's brain kicked in, noticing a tiny seam along the edge. I pried it open with a paperclip, and my heart stopped. No space for photos, just a micro SD card and a small, oddly shaped skeleton. I plugged the SD card into my laptop, my pulse racing. It held a password-protected document and a short audio file. I clicked the audio and Nana's voice filled the room, warm and steady despite the encryption's faint hiss. My darling Ava, if you are hearing this, then I fear my worries came true. The locket's rose has thorns to protect it. The password is Sterling Rose 1994. They are not who you seem. Robert has a history. The key is for my old box at Seattle Legacy Bank. Trust what you find, not what they tell you. I am always with you. I sat there, stunned, tears streaming down my face. Nana's voice was like a lifeline, pulling me back from the edge. I typed the password, my fingers trembling. The document opened. Scans of property deeds for a waterfront lot in my name and Leo's, held in a trust Nana had set up. My signature was needed for any sale. There were also Nana's journal entries, her neat handwriting detailing her distrust of Robert. His greed, his charm, his way of turning the family against me by calling me volatile. The pieces clicked together. Robert's Oregon deal was a lie. He was trying to sell my land, and the $5,000 was probably for legal fees or bribes to push it through. I opened my browser, hands shaking, and checked public records. There it was. A pending sale application for the property, with my name forged as the seller. Rage surged through me, hot and sharp, but it wasn't aimless anymore. Nana had given me a weapon, and I was ready to use it. The discovery of Nana's files lit a fire in me, but it wasn't the warm kind. It was cold, precise, like the edge of a blade. I barely slept, my laptop screen casting a blue glow across my Seattle apartment as I pored over the documents. The property deeds were ironclad, a valuable stretch of waterfront land held in trust for me and Leo, untouchable without my signature. Nana's journal entries were a gut punch, her words painting a picture of Robert I'd always sensed but never named. He has a voracious appetite for a lifestyle he cannot afford, she wrote. He's convinced Diane and Chloe that Ava is unstable, isolating her to keep her compliant. Each sentence was a mirror, reflecting the truth I'd been too afraid to face. I cross-checked Robert's Oregon deal against the public records. The pending sale application was real, my forged signature glaring back at me like a betrayal in ink. The $5,000 Mom had demanded was likely for a lawyer or a shady broker to push the deal through. My hands shook as I realized how close they'd come to stealing what Nana had fought to protect for me. But I wasn't helpless anymore. I had proof, and I needed someone who could wield it. I called Marcus Thorne, a lawyer I'd met years ago during a brief stint in real estate. He was cynical, expensive, and sharper than a tack. I paced my living room, phone pressed to my ear, spilling everything: Nana's locket, the SD card, the forged sale. I emailed him the files as we spoke, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. There was a long pause on his end, the kind that made my stomach twist. Then he said, "Miss Sterling, this isn't just family drama, this is conspiracy to commit fraud. When do you want to start?" His tone held no pity, just the cold professionalism I needed. For the first time in days, I felt like I wasn't alone. Marcus didn't waste time. He pulled records, traced the sale application, and confirmed the buyer was a shell company tied to one of Robert's old associates. The deeper he dug, the uglier it got. Robert had been siphoning money from family accounts for years. Small amounts, disguised as household expenses, but enough to fund his flashy cars and golf club memberships. I stared at the evidence, my anger hardening into resolve. This wasn't just about the land. It was about every moment they'd made me feel small. Every time I'd swallowed my hurt to keep the peace. I was done playing their game. I drove to my family's sprawling house in the suburbs, the stack of documents on the passenger seat like a loaded gun. My heart pounded, but my hands were steady on the wheel. I'd spent years avoiding confrontations, biting my tongue to keep the fragile threads of our family intact. But today, I wasn't here to beg for love. I was here to end the lies. They were in the living room when I walked in, unannounced. Mom froze mid-sentence, her wine glass hovering. Robert's smile faltered, his charm slipping like a mask. Chloe, perched on the couch in designer yoga gear, raised an eyebrow. Leo, slouched in an armchair, barely looked up from his phone. The air was thick with their surprise, but I didn't give them time to recover. I dropped the documents on the coffee table, the thud echoing in the silence. "You're selling my land," I said, my voice low but unwavering. "With a forged signature. Care to explain?" Robert recovered first, his laugh too loud. "Ava, sweetheart, you're blowing this out of proportion. It's just business for the family's future." But I cut him off, spreading the deeds and Nana's journal entries across the table. Mom's face crumpled, not with guilt but with frustration. "We were doing this for the family," she snapped, tears welling. "You're too unstable to manage an asset like this." Chloe sneered, her perfect features twisting. "See, this is why we can't tell you anything. You always make things dramatic." I was ready for their venom, but Leo's betrayal hit like a sledgehammer. He didn't flinch or look guilty. He met my eyes, cold and calculating, and said, "She's right, Ava. You would have messed it up. It was cleaner this way." My brother, the one I'd protected, the one I'd paid for, had chosen their side. The room spun, my righteous anger faltering under the weight of his words. Then the doorbell rang. Robert opened it, and 2 police officers stood there, their faces calm but firm. "We're here for a wellness check on Ms. Ava Sterling," one said. "Reports of unstable and paranoid behavior." My blood ran cold. They'd planned this, anticipated my discovery, and set a trap to discredit me. Mom's tears, Chloe's sneers, Leo's betrayal, it was all part of their script to paint me as the crazy one. I stood there, cornered, my evidence suddenly feeling like a flimsy shield against their orchestrated lie. I forced myself to breathe, my voice calm as I handed the officers my ID. "This is a private family financial dispute," I said, my words clipped but polite. They glanced at the documents on the table, then at my family's tense faces, and left with a warning to keep it civil. But the message was clear. My family wasn't just fighting for money. They were fighting for control, ready to strip me of my autonomy to protect their scheme. I called Marcus from my car, my hands shaking with fury and fear. "They're trying to have me declared unfit," I told him, recounting the wellness check. He didn't sugarcoat it. "They're playing dirty, Ava. We need to hit back harder." By noon, he'd filed an emergency injunction to halt the property sale, citing fraud and forgery. His team dug deeper, uncovering a web of lies. The Shell LLC was linked to Robert's old partner, and bank records showed years of small-line hidden transfers from Mom's and Chloe's accounts to Robert's personal ones. It was a pattern of greed, and I was their favorite mark. But the fight wasn't over. Their lawyer struck back, filing a motion to declare me mentally unfit to manage my affairs. They'd built a case over years, twisting my lonely birthday parties and late-night work emails into proof of instability. Sworn statements from Mom, Chloe, and Leo painted me as erratic, paranoid, a danger to myself. Reading their words was like reliving every moment I'd felt invisible, but this time I wasn't crumbling. I was dissecting their lies, piece by piece, with Marcus's help. The process was brutal. Every therapy session, every family argument, every time I'd cried alone in my apartment was dragged into the open, twisted to fit their narrative. But Marcus was relentless, and so was I. We built a counter case, using Nana's files and the forged documents to expose their fraud. I wasn't just fighting for the land anymore, I was fighting for my truth, for the right to be seen as whole. The fear was still there, but it was fuel now, pushing me forward through the wreckage of my family's betrayal. The law office was sterile, all glass and chrome, a stark contrast to the chaos brewing inside me. I walked in with Marcus, my briefcase light but heavy with purpose. My family sat across the long conference table, their lawyer flanked by stacks of papers, his smirk oozing confidence. Mom's eyes were red, but her jaw was set. Chloe's perfect posture screamed defiance. Leo slouched, avoiding my gaze. Robert, as always, wore his polished charm like armor, but I saw the cracks. His tie slightly askew, his smile too tight. This was the settlement meeting, their last chance to bury me. I was ready to bury them instead. Their lawyer launched into his spiel, painting Robert as a concerned patriarch, protecting the family from my erratic behavior. Marcus didn't let him finish. He stood, clicked a remote, and the wall screen lit up with our evidence: the Shell LLC's paper trail, Robert's bank records, the forged signature analysis. The room went still, the air thick with tension. Chloe's eyes widened, darting to Robert. Mom's hands clenched in her lap. Leo shifted, his foot tapping nervously. Diane broke the silence, her voice shrill. She can't prove any of this was malicious. It was the opening I'd been waiting for. I reached into my pocket, my fingers closing around the skeleton key from Nana's locket. I stood, my movements deliberate, and walked to the corner of the room where an antique writing desk sat. Nana's desk, the one Robert had insisted on keeping in his lawyer's office for safekeeping. I'd seen it in old photos Marcus's investigator had dug up, its hidden drawer a whisper of hope. The key fit perfectly. A soft click and the spring-loaded drawer popped open. Inside was a single envelope, yellowed with age. I held it up, my voice steady. "This is from Nana Sterling." I opened it, revealing a notarized letter from one of Robert's ex-partners, dated 20 years ago. It detailed a near-identical fraud: fake property deals, forged signatures, a severance payment to keep quiet. Nana had kept it as insurance, a warning she'd never had the chance to use. The room imploded. Robert's face drained of color, his charm evaporating. Chloe turned to him, her voice shaking. "You said it was just this once." Mom stared at the letter, her tears silent now, real. Leo stood abruptly, his chair scraping. "I was never a part of this," he said, his eyes darting to Marcus. "He made me go along with it." He offered to testify against Robert for immunity, his betrayal of me now mirrored by his betrayal of his stepfather. The irony was bitter, but I felt no satisfaction, just a hollow ache where family used to be. Marcus leaned forward, his voice like steel. "This ends now. Withdraw the motion against Miss Sterling, or we go to court with this." Their lawyer stammered, his confidence shattered. The meeting was over. My family's lies had collapsed under their own weight, and I'd lit the match. The legal fallout was swift and merciless. Robert faced criminal charges for fraud and forgery, his charm useless against the evidence. Mom and Chloe were left disgraced, their socialite status crumbling as whispers of the scandal spread. Leo's testimony spared him jail, but not shame. He moved across the country, and I haven't heard from him since. I won a full settlement, taking sole ownership of the waterfront land. I sold it the next month, the check a 7-figure weight in my hands. It wasn't victory, it was closure. I used part of the money to start the Sterling Rose Foundation, a nonprofit offering legal aid to victims of intra-family financial abuse. It was my way of honoring Nana, of turning the pain of her absence into a shield for others. I worked with Marcus to set it up, his gruff approval a quiet anchor in the storm. The rest of the money went into savings, a safety net I'd never had. For the first time, I wasn't giving it away to prove my worth. A year later, on my 31st birthday, I sat on a wooden bench overlooking Puget Sound. The air was crisp, salted with the sea, and the sky was a soft gray, promising rain. I held a thermos of chamomile tea, its warmth seeping into my hands. No fancy lodge, no perfectly set table, just me, present in the moment. The weight of my family's expectations, their betrayals, was gone. I was alone, but it wasn't the same as loneliness. It was freedom, hard-won and mine. My phone buzzed, a single text from Marcus. "Happy birthday, Ava." "Well fought." I smiled, a real smile, the kind that felt like sunlight breaking through clouds. I didn't need a room full of people to feel seen. I had Nana's locket tucked under my sweater, its weight a reminder of her love. I had the foundation already helping its first clients. And I had myself, whole and unbroken despite everything. The waves lapped at the shore, steady and unhurried. I thought about the years ahead, not with dread but with a quiet curiosity. Maybe I'd travel, see the places Nana used to talk about. Maybe I'd write about this, not to expose my family but to understand myself. The future was open, a blank page I could fill without fear. I took a sip of tea, the warmth spreading through me, and let the silence settle. It wasn't neglect anymore, it was peace. If you take one thing from my experience, let it be this. Trust your instincts, but document everything. My family used my kindness against me and tried to paint me as unstable to hide their own greed, but they couldn't argue with a paper trail. Protect yourself, legally and financially, especially from those you love. Your voice is strongest when it's armed with the truth, and you are far more resilient than your manipulators want you to believe. Never let anyone write your narrative for you.